Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicast and in partnership with Vertical Valor Magazine. In this episode, I sit down with co-hosts Jack Schonely and Bryan Smith for an in-depth conversation with Tactical Flying's Ryan Welch.
So we're spinning up and I turn avionics on, the radios come up, and all of a sudden I hear just chaos going on Northern, and they're putting information out, and I'm listening, and it's, a hot call, no one's on scene yet, and they're constantly feeding in. And we got another RP calling saying more shots are fired.
Ryan, a seasoned law enforcement officer turned Major League Baseball authenticator, shares his remarkable journey from serving 16 years at the San Diego Police Department to becoming a senior tactical flight officer specializing in airborne thermal imaging and airborne law enforcement tactics. During the conversation, we discussed the vital role of training, mentorship, and community involvement, as well as the evolution of technology in law enforcement operations. From scenario-based training to the integration of unmanned systems, Ryan, a tactics instructor for Tactical Flying, provides invaluable insights into ensuring operational safety and effectiveness, highlighting the critical importance of ongoing continuous training. Whether you're interested in aviation, law enforcement, or leadership, this episode delivers expert knowledge and inspiring stories from a truly accomplished professional. Thank you to our sponsors, Metro Aviation, Garmin, and Airbus.
Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z Podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like they're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, threw the shotgun, threw something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
You transformed that safety program. You spent 10 years, if I remember correctly. Was it 10 years running that program? And you created what has become the gold standard for safety operations in the law enforcement world. Again, banging your head against the wall. I can only imagine how tough it was at times, talking to agencies again about things that should be common practice, but you fought the good fight, and just commendable that you've stuck with that. Safety is challenging. It's hard to get a student to come into a safety class and be engaged, but you found a way to do that. You did a really good job of creating a program that was not just to check the box, come and sit in here and learn about SMS. This is actually how to be a safer TFO, a safer pilot, a safer air crew, and we've benefited as a community because of the efforts you put in there.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying so. Obviously, it was a huge group effort, including all of you. And I think it's a general progression towards improving the overall professionalism of the industry. Because I tell people it's not a balance. Are we going to have to be safer and then the operations will be harmed and vice versa? No, the safer operations are the more effective operations. The operations with the better trained technical flight officers are the safer operations. They complement each other. Everything goes up. The more training you have in the air crew, the safer you'll be, the more bad guys you'll find, the more missing people you'll find, the more fires you'll put out. They all complement each other, and it's just a focus on professionalism. And I have to throw it back on you, Jon, because the hardest part is getting the word out to people. And for as small of a community it is, you still, and I know Ryan and Jack both visit places, and sometimes you're very, very surprised at how some basic ideas and concepts still haven't filtered it to that operation, because we can get very isolated in our own little castles. And without things like this, and Jon, everybody loves this podcast. Everybody knows about it. I tell people, if you listen to Hangar Z, and I have the stickers everywhere, they're like, oh yeah, I love that, because it's an enjoyable podcast. It's fun, but you get good information, and you got guys like Ryan on these episodes. Oh my God, I feel I need to go out and accomplish something with my life after listening to Ryan. I feel
would you
terrible.
try and work on that? Yeah, try and work on that, Bryan. Yeah, and maybe you can come back. Jeez,
wow, it is pretty cool when you look around and for me, sitting here, the impact y'all have had. But, again, go back to the training side and the legacy that's left behind between Kevin and Todd. Now, I wonder, how did Ryan get so good operating the camera system? How did he get to a position where he's now one of the leading tactics instructors in the world? Yeah. So can you talk about some of the training you're doing, Ryan, and some of the stuff that Tactical Flying's doing, it's really, as far as I'm concerned, outside the box thinking on the behalf of you and Nick and even Kevin from the inception of Tactical Flying. Can you talk about what offerings y'all have in case people aren't familiar with it?
Absolutely. I mean, and it's ever growing. I mean, you have Nick, who, prettiest man alive, and he, he has nothing but ideas coming out. Like, the guy is a savant when it comes to that. And I think that's where he and I really work well together, because we're like the yin and yang. I have this great idea, and we go down the road, and I'm like, dude, stop. Let's focus on this. And I kind of rein him in. I have this little cat meme I send him all the time. It's this cat chasing a laser around the room. And he always knows, like, that means redirect. Here we go.
That's good.
But yeah, I mean, we obviously the infrared tactics is, that was the heart and soul of it. That's what Kevin put together. And, to this day, we still use a lot of his material, upgrading it now and updating it into a really neat show now. The flight profile. And the thing that we've noticed, and the thing that I love where Nick and I work together, is that we're dynamic. We're no longer, it's not cookie cutter. It's not, well, we're going to sit here and go through all these slides. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the customers I go out and I teach, and, teach a lot of the kind of gimbal specific now, is a lot of it. And then we kind of bring in the tactics with that. And I'll go to them and say, what do you want to talk about? And we may get through 10 slides, but our discussion is 3 hours. And I let them lead that. And, again, it's just having that bag of goodies from all the different instruction and all the different classes I've had and the experiences. And we bring it in, and we continue to work on things together. We bring out their videos, and we just start picking it apart and talk about. And now we're able to bring in, like, gimbal angles. We're able to bring in camera angles without having a slide in front of them. And we're just watching their video, and, oh, okay, that's what that means. And then we're talking level and gain without a level and gain slide. Now we're just looking at their picture and talking about all the differences. And that's something I think that is really starting to take off, to where it's that dynamic attitude and having everything being fluid and catered more towards what the needs are of the customer versus just, this is the course and you're going to like it, So we have the infrared course, we have the gimbal specific, we teach FLIR customers, L3 customers, TRACA customers. Then we have the sideshow enforcement, which is great. And that is really taken off. We have agencies all across the United States constantly pinging them for that. The San Jose guys are like, oh my gosh, give me a break. We're flying them everywhere to teach that and getting really good responses from that, which is really cool. We're going to bring in some leadership classes now, which will be really fun. Cody Robinson out in Houston is a phenomenal human being.
Yep.
That he's a brother. And, Nick and I text just about every single day in a group text. Phenomenal outlook on unit management and leadership and, through mistakes, through successes. And the thing I love about Cody is that, he is along that same mindset that I have, to where, we don't learn from successes. We learn from where we fouled up. Yep. And we grow from those things. And, and I think that's what's really going to help out when we start promoting that class. So, yeah, I mean, we're cranking it out. We're getting some stuff going, some TFO courses, a couple different levels, a level 1 course, and then we'll move into a level 2. And, just kind of really just being out there for them and giving them options and asking them, what do they want? What do they need? And then we'll cater it to them. So it's really cool.
What's interesting is, most people are used to only the in-person instruction. And, I think that's probably the preferred method. That interaction is so important. And I can see it in all of your classes, the level of engagement that students have with you as an instructor, whether it's in class or in the breaks, is vital. You learn so much during those times. And I think the instructors learn almost as much from the students as vice versa, especially in the breaks, because we all know law enforcement officers don't ask questions or interact with instructors during the course. But because of where we sit today with recruitment and retention, a lot of agencies just cannot afford, because of staffing, to send people out. So you guys have come up with a way to go to them with I guess, the remote training. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously COVID brought a whole lot of fun to our world. But one of it was obviously a lot of the online presence and the Zoom. So, you know, we'll sit there and we'll dissect videos over Zoom with them. We'll do classes, you know, remote classes, which really allows them to have that opportunity to gain that instruction. You know, obviously the price points can be a little bit less and they can start to afford that, which is good. The other thing is like hosting, you know, a regional event. It's a lot easier for an agency to send 1 or 2 people out to a class versus pay for someone to come in and shut the unit down for the whole day and all of that. So it's, you know, kind of giving those different types of opportunities for them is going to be really cool. Our big dream, and, you know, we've done a couple test runs on it, is to kind of do like the John Boy video breakdown for guys. And so like a newer TFO, you know, can submit a couple videos and we'll, you know, kind of give the whole breakdown of the video and what we like here, and, you know, all the way down to like the John Madden writing on the screen and, you know, look, you know, this is, you know, we need to get a little bit wider here with the field of view and, you know, adjust the level and gain, and just giving them more opportunities to get that personalized training. That's our number one goal, you know.
That concept is awesome. Like you brought up earlier, we learn a lot of times more from our failures than our successes. And
always, as long as you're willing to look at it.
Yeah.
Amen. Yep.
The one I think of a lot is a caper I had where I was convinced a suspect was hiding underneath a patio cover. I didn't take eyes off this guy the whole time, except for the millisecond that it took me to sneeze. And in that millisecond, he snuck out and I didn't realize it. And it wasn't until I went back and reviewed the tape. I just dated myself. The video footage,
the VHS,
to see, oh yeah, he snuck out right there. But you know, I actually remember meeting with you and Nick over lunch and talking about the concept of the video breakdowns.
Yeah,
you know, I think the magic of what you guys are doing is that you know, that's a sensitive topic because you don't want that to get in the hands of the wrong people. But you guys have come up with a way, you know, through, you know, offering or requesting law enforcement credentials to get in and start to do that stuff. So I love that idea. I think it's really cool. Looking forward to seeing that develop amongst a lot of the other stuff you guys have going on.
Back in the early days of my class, a lot of the videos were from Kevin and Todd. You know, they shared them with me. And I would kid with people and say, okay, now we're going to watch this video. And even if they were sitting in this room, I would say what I'm going to say, you know, because Kevin and Todd they'd give me tapes again, that there were mistakes on, and they knew it, and they gave them to me anyway. And I'd say, look at this, you know, here's a mistake. I said, all TFOs make that mistake, except for me. Mine aren't on video, because I didn't make this mistake, and prove that I didn't because none of my stuff's on video. And we joke about that, but they were smart. They were thinking about that even way back then about, well, the best tapes to show are the ones where you screw up, because those are the ones you're going to walk away and say, wow, I'm going to learn. As long as you're willing to learn and park your ego, you'll learn tons from that mistake. And it is mistakes that every single TFO makes. We've all done it, where we were on that porch, John, and looked away for a second and looked back, and now it's not there. That happens to every TFO, some many, many times before they finally kicks in that they got to widen out and do some other things. But the point is that it's a great idea, what you're running with here, Ryan. It just, you know, especially when you're using the customer's tapes,
right?
You know, videos. I love that. I love that because they're intimate with that. You know, that's theirs. That's their aircraft. That's their picture. That's their gimbal. And now you can say, hey, you know what should you have done here? And sometimes they'll tell you, you know, well, I should have done this. That's right. You know, so the concept is excellent. And you guys will do very well continuing that for sure. For sure. It's great.
Yeah, that's been the biggest thing, you know, when going out to meet with these customers who, you know, are now just moving into the digital world. That's what a lot of these guys are doing. So they're moving from 8300 or 8500s to, you know, track a TC300 or a FLIR 380. And so it's a total different world. And there's so many different features to it. And we put their video up and, you know, I try not to, and we're sitting there and we're watching. I said, "Oh, do you see him throw the gun?" And they all look around at each other.
Yeah.
Are you what? And then we slow it down, and I show, and then we start talking about, movements and body and how, arm extends away from something. And so it's like them seeing their own video, that's like the aha moment. And then you can get that phone call, a few days later where they go, "Hey, we had another call and I found a cell phone in a bush."
Yeah.
And I'm like, perfect. Then we did our job. And that's what it's all about. But again, it's like, they can see your videos. They can see, okay, wow, that's a really tuned picture and everything. But then, to have their own videos up there on the screen and kind of going over that, that's when it like really drives that home. And we've seen a lot of success when it comes to that, which is a lot of fun.
Something that Nick always says, and that I've to go back, I probably butchered every single one of these statements and sayings across the life of this podcast. But Nick is one I butcher a lot. But he does say something a lot about camera systems, which I think is 100% true. And it doesn't only apply to camera systems; it applies to all the technology we have in these aircraft, because they're so advanced. And he talks about using the equipment and technology like it's a fax machine, when really it's an iPhone. There's so much layered technology in there. To really understand how to use it, you've got to put some effort and energy into doing that. And again, going back to what you said, Bryan, our whole goal is to make this a more professional environment that we're operating in, right? So we can be more effective and efficient. So, utilizing the services of tactical flying to help bring that iPhone technology out of these camera systems, and again, not just the camera systems, but everything else is vital. You guys have recently opened up a new training facility in North County, San Diego, which North County, San Diego is one of the most beautiful places in the world. I'd love it. Can you talk about that?
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
Yeah, so that is at Civic, and you're working with them now. It's great. They have a cool little classroom set up. What's great is, then you have Hangar 1 right there, right next door, which is a great place for, the end users who don't see the whole build out process and they don't understand that whole deal. And they're able to, we take them on a tour over there and they get to see the whole start to finish product. And it's a great environment. Hotels are close by. It's not like a huge conference room style, and obviously great breweries up in North County. So it's a lot of fun, and we kind of, beer is always good. But it's a good opportunity for us to kind of keep some smaller classroom stuff and to really kind of dig into the nuts and bolts of the job and, really get in depth and get these guys, some good quality training that, hopefully they can take back to their units and help progress them, One of our things, you talk about the technology, you talk about using it to the utmost ability, right? We try to create super users of the products. It's not only about an ROI deal when you really think about it. These agencies, whether it's federal funding they're getting or their private funding, and they're spending upwards of $800,000 on these camera systems, and you should probably use them well. Don't just put them on, turn them on, and use all the factory defaults and go. It's one of my cringiest things when I'm reviewing videos and I see it still says FLIR Systems up top, and it's like, well, like, dude, you paid a lot of money for that. Put your own name up there, put your agency name up there. And then, then not understanding, if you're flying around with image aid and you're trying to do something that's moving, well, that's not what that's meant for. And so, those are all the cringeworthy things where we're going, no, man, we need to get you in depth in this camera to fully understand what each of these things are. And one of the things we do is we take a tour all the way around and we talk about every single symbology and what is actually going on. And now we're able to do that with our own training facility to where now we can really get in depth and not be constrained, I guess, to time. And we can really, formulate our courses the way we want to. And having that standing classroom now, it's tremendous. It's really cool,
The other benefit of that is not only the training side, it's the networking side, right?
Amen.
Come out here, might be from different agencies. Now you're able to spend time out of the classroom at a brewery or said location in North County. That's awesome.
Yep.
And get to know the folks you're with, just like the benefits of a conference, but just in a smaller setting, which is cool. So again, you guys are thinking outside the box and doing some really, really cool stuff for the industry. The technology side of the industry is really what's interesting to me most of the time. I love considering the technology that's being developed that's here, and how do we take that and make it more effective and efficient, or make our air crews more effective and efficient. Given what's kind of on the horizon, you talked about Track, they've got some really, really cool stuff that's up and coming. Of the technology you've seen, what's most interesting to you as far as new technologies or emerging technologies?
Wow, that's a good one. I think, and I'm probably going to really ruffle some feathers here, but, the HD camera systems, I think, changed the way that we do business. We're no longer sending people to beehives or puddles of water, and now, because we look down and are like, well, no, that's not a person. I know that for a fact because I just saw a rat run along a branch, right? Yep. So I think those are all that. I think that was the biggest upgrade of our industry. My, Clint Eastwood Gran Turismo on the porch moment is, I think I don't think we need all of the bells and whistles. I know like the MTI, the moving, picking up movement and everything, that's really good. And that helps us a lot. But I also believe that I think maybe too much technology is also a crutch to a TFO, because now you're relying too much on the system to find things for you versus you being the hunter. And I know I'm going to get in trouble, and I'm probably going to get phone calls from, Spillane and Kip Horn, all those guys. And, but it's just, I think that that's something to where I want those guys to be able to take control of their camera and to really master it. Now, the auto leveling game, I think, is vastly improved. The auto leveling game with the 8500s, holy smokes, good luck, right? But now with these HDs, like, that's a lot better, and you can really fine tune it, which I think is great advancements. I think the moving maps have improved greatly. The overlays are really making things work for the, single monitor operations. And, I think all of those types of steps have really, really helped out quite a bit. But, I guess I'm old school, where I'm going, hey man, like, just put me in manual level and gain, and, maybe a little rate aid here and there, and now good things are going to happen. But, I think a lot of those other, whiz bang stuff, they have a moment for it. Maybe in a surveillance or stuff like that, it's going to help out quite a bit. The auto tracking has improved tremendously, and it's great when you're in Iowa. But if I'm in LA, probably not going to help out a whole lot.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it goes back to, and what I don't want is, I don't want to become a crutch. I don't want it to be to where a commander somewhere says, hey, well, we're going to get all these features and we don't need to invest in training. We don't need to have our TFO be really good at what they do, because that camera should do most of the job for them. I'd rather have it kind of the flip side and say, I want to have a really, really good TFO that is going to use the utmost potential out of this camera. And he's going to be able to find, the foot that's sticking out from behind a shed, versus waiting for that camera to say something's moving. That's what I want to see. And I think that's where you're going to get that good return on investment, and understand that, yeah, you know what? We wouldn't have seen that with an 8500. We wouldn't have seen that with a FLIR 8000, or we wouldn't have seen outside with goggles. Yeah. And I think those are the important things that we need to take into consideration.
I like your analogy of the Gran Turismo out on the porch.
It's my favorite. I love that guy. I send that meme too. Whenever I'm going to go on a rant, I send that. I said, stand by. Yeah.
No, there's a lot of truth in that, right? You can't use that as a crutch. It's got to be, you've got to develop the skill set to learn how to use that stuff in addition to, like a layered base approach. And I think the companies have done a good job of enabling or disabling features at the discretion of the user. So I think it comes down to unit culture and how you train and how you decide when and if your folks use that stuff, because
Absolutely.
it is an absolute game changer having all that technology. But knowing when to use that technology is important, and knowing what candidates that technology can potentially be applied to is important as well. Bryan, on the safety side, technology has done a lot. I mean, talk about double IMC and autopilots and all of those systems. For you, when it comes to technology, what's exciting and interesting?
The last helicopter that we had finally had an effective autopilot in it, and it had the magic blue button on the cyclic to level. And that to me was phenomenal, because we would train inadvertent IMC, we would train incapacitated pilot for the TFOs, for them to go through the whole process of going back, doing the run on landing. I know that's a whole other conversation, but the ability, because I always thought when I'm sitting over in the TFO seat, I've got a controller in my lap. I've got sometimes a searchlight controller in my lap. I've got a lap full of stuff, and I would slide my chair back a little bit, and I still wore my goggles in the left seat, but I would adjust them in a different position, so I didn't have to tilt my head back quite as far. And it wasn't where I'd necessarily want them if I had to fly. And I was like, if he takes a bullet or has a heart attack or something, I got to get all this crap out of my lap and reach way forward to grab the controls. Whereas if I could tap that autopilot engage button, buy me a few seconds to gather myself and get in position, that was huge. And single pilot IFR, I like the IFR capability. I don't know if I would want to be single pilot IFR in some of the single engine helicopters that they're putting it in, just for the fact that I know how much the workload would be if it failed in the clouds. But the flip side of that, and to tie back into what you're talking about with the mission equipment, you have to know how to use it. And there are plenty of inadvertent IMC accidents in aircraft that were fully capable of flying in IFR with fantastic IFR avionics and capabilities. But because the pilot or the company had not put any effort into proficiency, when it came time to use it, they either didn't know how to use it or they were reluctant to use it because they weren't comfortable with it, and it did them no good. And that's the same thing. You can buy a brand new, $1 million camera and couple it with a beautiful moving map system, downlink, all the bells and whistles. If you don't teach someone how to use it, you're not going to get any capability out of it. So on both sides, and with the safety stuff, you can have almost too much if you're not training people and telling them how to use it and when to use it. There's autopilot's great. Can you use it on a call? No. Maybe a surveillance call, but on a patrol call, if you're just flying the same circle around a target each time, you're doing it wrong. And I always hate people saying, I just fly circles around. Well, that's a fun thing to say, but if you honestly believe that, you're doing it wrong, because a pilot should be constantly adjusting their position for the camera or their eyeballs, whatever they're using for the search. And the autopilot's not going to do anything for you at that point. Yeah. A surveillance around some doper's house for an hour while he's doing laundry inside. Okay. Yeah. But there's
Dopers
a lot
do laundry.
Yeah.
I always thought they smelled funny.
It's their money in there, yeah. But I think the IFR capabilities and a lot of the avionics are nice. But again, just like with the camera systems and everything, if you don't couple that with training and proficiency, it's not going to do a lick of good.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much capability, and you look in the Garmin autopilot systems, there's pages and pages and pages to get to be familiar with. It takes a lot of time to be proficient. And not just in the book, actually using it, like you said. So it's hard to go up and fly a call with it. So you've got to be looking for time outside of those calls to figure out how to use this stuff and use it well,
Yeah.
So that when you do find yourself in an emergency, you know exactly what it is you're doing. But you brought up the incapacitated pilot scenario, and that's one I'd like to talk about because, most law enforcement agencies are flying with a pilot and a TFO, and that TFO oftentimes is not a pilot. And we want to put ourselves in the best position possible to get that TFO on the ground safely in the event the pilot's incapacitated. So how do we do that lots of interesting stuff. Loft is, Jack had got to go to LAPD and see Loft's new simulator. What a cool piece of technology that is. I'm excited to see the impact that has long term. Jack, for you guys, you flew oftentimes at like 300 AGL because of where you had to fly with Class B airspace. What did you guys do to train for that incapacitated pilot scenario?
A couple things. 300 feet was a rare thing, but 500 was pretty common. I mean, South Central's at or below 900, whether you like it or not. Mm-hmm. You're either at 8,000 or at or below 900. So we had no choice in a bunch of parts of town. But we had emergency flight training for TFOs. It wasn't done as regularly as it should be. But most TFOs over the years got to a point where they could do a shallow approach to a run-on landing. And some were just gifted and could bring it to a hover and set it down nicer than I could. And then you just go, I don't like you anymore. I thought you were a pretty good kid, but you just greased that landing much better than I did. But I mean, we did that. But now with the Loft Dynamics H125 simulator that they got in the hangar, there is just no excuse. It's much more economical. It's much safer. It's just a great tool to not only for the pilot side, but for the TFO side. And that's going to change the emergency flight training. Now, when we talked to Kevin Gallagher, the chief pilot at LA, we talked about the priorities. And the priorities were to introduce the system, the simulator to everybody, and then get it into currency training and inadvertent IMC. Those were the priorities. But teaching TFOs was also on that list for emergency flight training and scenario training. That simulator is amazing. It has limitless possibilities of what you can put into software where you'll be able to do all sorts of things with that mission-wise, including using a gimbal, I'm sure, eventually. But the inadvertent IMC, that's such a big one. It's just, if you can do that regularly, it really is more valuable than, I'm gonna ruffle some feathers too. It's more valuable than the instrument rating. If you're doing inadvertent IMC regularly, and I think Bryan will agree with this, and Ryan and Jon too, that if you're doing it regularly in a simulator, it doesn't matter if you have an instrument rating or not. I mean, some of the people that handled that the best, when I was in the back of a simulator down in Texas doing it, they weren't even close to getting an instrument rating. They weren't. 99% of the pilots didn't have it. But if you teach it the right way and you have the simulator, it's amazing the strides you can make and the confidence level that you can build. But now it's sitting in the hangar. Oh, baby. That's gold. That's gold, because now there's no excuse to not be current, and comfortable and confident that if I get into that marine layer inadvertently, I know I can handle that. And that's where they're going to be very quickly, because that simulator's sitting right there. Yeah. So it's a great tool.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
You'll know you've done it right when it gets to the point that the scenarios are boring.
Yes.
They're not terrifying anymore. They're like, oh my God, okay. And they start flying out of it, and they start complaining. They want to do other emergencies. I'm like, good. I want you to be so good at it. You're bored. Now I'm going to change it up so it's more surprising next time. But with the simulator, you can keep doing that till it's no big deal anymore.
I never did it, but I said I was going to do it for so long. I had a heart rate monitor for cycling. I said, I'm going to bring that heart rate monitor along. And my earlier one had a watch that went with it. The newer ones go right to your computer that's on your bike, and you don't need the watch. But I had an old one sitting around. I said, I'm going to take that with me to simulator training and put it on people, including myself. and see what happens when that screen when that visual goes to gray. And you know what happens. I mean, that heart rate just goes pew, through the roof. You know
you've done a good job as a sim instructor when they curse at you.
That's right.
Oh, you son of a mother.
Yeah, I got called a lot of names back there. But I would also say that after a while, you would have that heart rate monitor on and nothing would happen.
Yes.
I mean, where now they've done it, enough reps in it, and they're confident, and they're going, this is a no-brainer. Now, I have to do some things right, but I know what those are. I can do it. I have confidence I can do it. Okay. And they just do it, and their heart rate doesn't go up 30 beats per minute like it would in the real deal. So great tools, great technology all around on that conversation. That was good.
What's interesting about what you brought up with the heart rate is I can picture myself as a brand new TFO seeing my heart rate spike as I'm walking closer to the ship when you're getting the front.
You're not even inside the cockpit yet. I just went up 30 beats.
That comment you made on the last one about going IFR in your sunglasses because you were sweating because you're so nervous.
Absolutely.
That is gold. I almost crashed the car laughing when you said that.
I was really good at helmet fires. I had a lot of those.
Yeah.
Get started a lot of and those. It was during that. It was during the, incapacitated, and, Todd's trying to teach me how to do a run on landing.
Yeah.
And he's looking over at me, and I got sweat just pouring out of my helmet. And he goes, dude, are you all right? I'm like, no, we're not supposed to do this, But yeah, absolutely. I would sing Frank Sinatra. I would hum Frank Sinatra to myself when I was buckling in to try to get my heart rate down just to say the checklist. That's how nervous I was, or how anxious I was.
Any particular Sinatra song that you
did? It probably wasn't the right one. It was Fly Me to the Moon.
Okay.
So,
that's okay.
But yeah, it was, we were going there. Yeah. So yeah.
That's great.
It reminds me of, I think it was Chris Haas from Sonoma. Was he the one as an FTO? If his trainees would do a bad job, we'd play jazz music.
Yeah. just to drive them crazy.
That's great. Little Kenny G.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, we talked about Kenny G and putting Kenny G music in the background of that podcast.
Yeah. The challenges of being an UTFO are, there's a long list of challenges. You're trying to understand the technology. You're trying to figure out how to say things in a way that makes sense. You're trying to be incident commander in a lot of ways. There's so much stuff you're trying to learn how to do and doing it at the same time. What I love about all of you guys in the training you do is you travel around the world and you talk to agencies that do things differently than we do. And you see, oh, that works cool and this isn't so cool. But you take the good things and you spread them around to the agencies that haven't seen those things just like you hadn't. So with that, what are some interesting things that you've seen recently, trends, with agencies that may be requesting certain types of training that's unusual, or they're training in a way that you hadn't seen, that the structure of the training might be different? Any things that have popped up?
It's time for your Heli Life giveaway buzzword. Listen up and remember this word, because you'll need it to enter for a chance to win exclusive Heli Life gear. Ready? This episode's buzzword is interdiction. Visit contest.verticalhelicasts.com to enter the buzzword.
Well, the UAS deal it's becoming alive. And the amount of UAS training that we've had requested within the last 2 months has been incredible. And I think it's real. And I think it's something that is, and the thing that I love, and it was heartwarming, is the fact that a lot of them are asking for suspect search techniques.
Yes.
We want to get better at searching with a UAS. And I'm like, thank you, Lord,
Yep.
Because it's going to complement each other. It's not going away. UAS is going to be coming around, and it's going to complement air support.
Yep.
And I think it's going to complement it because of de-escalation is not going away. De-escalation is going to continue to make its way across the United States. And with that, we're not going to have a helicopter circling for 30 minutes while we go through the de-escalation process. And I think if we're able to have a UAS take over and hold the scene until it becomes dynamic, then the helicopter can come back. I think that's going to be the way it's going to be, kind of coming down the line. And to be able to train the UAS operators to think like a TFO, search like a TFO, act like a TFO, now we're really going to be going somewhere. Yeah. So, I mean, that's been something that's been coming up quite a bit. As far as like, techniques, we obviously have our orbit to the pilot side guys, our orbit to the TFO side guys, and Kevin would fight tooth and nail in his classroom, and going over that. And the cool part is that it's starting to make sense to some people about, orbiting to the left or orbiting to the TFO side. But to be honest with you, with the new cameras, a right-hand orbit or a pilot side orbit is not going to kill you anymore. And there may be some instances when that is going to actually come into play. And so I guess, softened up. I've been a little less Clint Eastwood when it comes to that, to where I'm like, well, let's take a peek at that. And, I've flown with some agencies where it comes to that. And so now it's engaging me into thinking, how can we now work this together? And it's going to come down to, and like we talked about, what Bryan was talking about, where it's a crew, and we have to understand it's a crew, because we still see that. We still see that dissection of the cockpit in other agencies, and we have to understand that, no, we're working together here. And so maybe we're not going to change the foundation of a unit to where they're saying we're going to orbit to the pilot side, but what we're going to do is we're going to empower the TFO to let the pilot know when he needs to have it on his side. And now we're going to work together, and we're going to get through that process together. And so I don't think I really answered your question, but I think like those are the things that have come up a lot when it comes to the training, going out and seeing other agencies on the way that they're doing things. The big thing is getting that TFO involved and understanding that you are part of this crew all the way down to a walk around prior to taking off. Like, no, dude, you're in the same helicopter as the pilot. You walk around, you have your eyeballs on, because when I just came through and walked around, I noticed that cowling was unclipped and both of you guys missed it, and it's like, we all need to be in this together and understand that we're strapping into that same aircraft and we want to come back together. So, I think that's the biggest push is really getting that continuity and making sure that we understand we're all one crew.
I'm thrilled that UAS crews are calling you.
Oh, it's great.
Because we've talked about it many times on this podcast, where it is, you said it, Ryan, it's here to stay. It's going to only increase. And if you're operating that UAS, you are a pilot and a TFO, you're doing both jobs, you better know how to talk, you better know how to search, you better understand FLIR. And let's face it, in the big scheme of things, nationwide, many of them don't. Yep. They have no skills in that. And it's not their fault. It Absolutely. Is not their fault. Their departments have said, here's a $20,000 drone. Isn't that cool? Go get certified by the FAA. And they do, because it's easy. I mean, just take some studying and some practice, and you can do it. And that's it. Right. Now they say, okay, go do your thing. Oh, okay. Yeah. These poor officers are being thrown into the fire. They need tactical flying. They need Ryan to go out there and say, hey, now here's what you really have to do.
Right.
Here's how you search. Here's where you look. Here's what you say when you find that. Here's what you don't say when you find something. That's what they're lacking. And again, it is not the operator's fault. It is the department's fault. And you brought it up earlier, you buy an $800,000 gimbal, but you don't invest in the operator?
Correct.
How dumb is that?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
How dumb is that? It's the operator that's going to take that incredible technology, and let's face it, some of these drones, I mean, the camera systems are incredible.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the visuals are absolutely amazing. They're right there with some of the gimbals on helicopters. But if you have somebody that's never searched or never been instructed how to search or where to look or what to say, it's not worth anything. It's not worth anything. So and good. I'm thrilled to hear that you're getting calls on that, Ryan.
You can see that in the agencies where they integrate the manned and unmanned together. Then the unmanned side of that operation gets the benefit of the training and expertise from the manned side, and they're very effective. Every agency I've talked to where they have the manned and unmanned operating together under the same umbrella are extremely effective. It works very, very well. I have not met one where it was a failure. Every single one where at the same agency where they're separate entities, they don't have near that level of success. Never have I seen one where they are separately as successful as they would be together. And
it says a lot.
You know all the reasons. And it's usually someone puts it in their own little fortress over here. These are my drones and they can't play with you anymore. I know, Jack, that happens with canines in some places. We have the patrol and this, and it never works well. 0% of the time is that more beneficial than putting them together. And now the unmanned people don't benefit from the manned side. When there's a big call that would benefit from having multiple aircraft, multiple sensors, multiple points of view, it's not done because they're not communicating. They won't fly together. It's a disaster. But you can see the direct impact of having training from that manned side in the unmanned, because it goes back to this idea that all we need to do is obtain an aerial viewpoint and bad guys will magically appear in front of us. Yeah. And it's not the case. We learned that on the manned side 50 years ago. And we're still trying to catch up with the requisite training needed to do it right. The unmanned side, all these people sold them, hey, you can do this for cheap. You just launch it in the air and bad guy just appears like a silhouette in front of you.
It's magic.
Yeah. And they get up and they're like, oh, and you talk to them like, there's a whole science to it. There's an art to it. And Absolutely. You have to learn that. So great.
Heck, there's a company that's created around it. Tactical flying.
Yeah,
I mean,
weird.
It's
so weird.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
I mean, but the average chief, the average sheriff, they don't know. And again, it's not their fault. They got a lot of responsibilities, but they just think we'll just buy this really cool drone and it'll be great. And like you said, Bryan, they are picturing that you will launch it and it'll take care of it. That doesn't matter who the operator is.
Right.
False.
Yep. Gatekeeping things is definitely, it's a product of ego.
Yeah.
And ego is the fastest way that you're going to stop progression. And, it's so unfortunate. And you often see where maybe agencies or maybe people who are in charge want to do only what's convenient and they don't want to do the inconvenient. And the inconvenient part is where you're going to get better. And,
agreed.
Yep. Michael Jordan had a great quote where he says, practice like you've never won, play like you've never lost. And, I love that. I absolutely love that quote because it's being uncomfortable, and you're being uncomfortable in the time when you're training, right? And then when it comes into play, you are playing that without fear, because if you've never lost, you're not going to have fear when you really think about that. But if you practice like you have never succeeded, you're going to grow exponentially. And the unfortunate matter is a lot of agencies, a lot of departments, the leadership is disconnected from the actual end users and the operators. And if the operators would be empowered and they were to understand that, hey man, you're going to have to work your ass off to be good. And you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Good things are going to be a product of that.
Do you use that line in your classes, Ryan?
I don't know. I black out half the time when I'm teaching.
Well, add it to a slide because that is gold.
Yeah.
That's gold.
I just thought of it. I have no idea what I just said.
Wow. Hey,
it's recorded. You can play it.
It's recorded.
We got it.
And it's recorded, so you got it. You can take full credit for it,
Thanks to our sponsor, Garmin. The Garmin GI-275 digital flight instrument is now approved for MD-500 helicopters, giving operators the ideal upgrade option for replacing obsolete mechanical gauges with reliable solid-state electronics. Get details at garmin.com/GI-275heli.
Well, a couple things I want to touch on, and we're running out of time here. But one of the things, Jack, you brought this up before. Drone operators, UAS operators, they're a pilot and a TFO. And we've learned long ago, like Bryan said, that pilots aren't good at being a pilot and a TFO. We're not asking the pilot of a helicopter to go up and TFO an aircraft. So, I think it's silly that we're asking drone operators who have no experience as TFOs to do a job with both a pilot and a TFO. So at a minimum, I think if you're in a position where you're a UAS operator, you need to solicit the support and training of somebody like Tactical Flying, somebody like Jack, somebody like Bryan, to come out and be like, how do I do this job in a way that'll make me effective? Because right now I'm relying on my patrol tactics, that perspective from the ground to get me through here. And we all know one of the hardest parts about being a TFO is the communication aspect of that.
Yep.
So the ability to not only see what you're seeing, but to relay it in an effective and efficient way.
And I'm sure Ryan's seen this. There are agencies that do put 2 people on that drone.
That's correct.
And as a pilot, one pilot, one TFO. And what they benefit from people like Ryan and Tactical Flying is that they learn how to interact just like we learned to interact with a pilot. And again, it goes back to what Bryan, I think, just said. It's an art form. It is an art form, and you've got to learn it. And if you don't, you're going to be completely ineffective.
Absolutely.
So that's the other thing. So you're right, Jon. I mean, putting it all on one person, it's a lot. Can it be done? Yeah, it can. Especially with some of these drones they almost fly themselves. But if you do assign 2 people, they better get some training on how to do that. It just doesn't happen. It's you just don't say, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. Good luck. Well, yeah, good luck for sure.
If only there was a model they could look at and be like, how do we do this successfully?
Yeah.
You know what? Somebody should think of this.
Yeah.
And they should put a Michael Jordan quote on the front slide. That's
What would a good name for a business be for that? Oh no.
Something tactical.
Yeah. Maybe have to do with flying. I don't know.
Tactical Flying. You're welcome.
Man.
Hey, you already got a shirt.
Yeah. Instantly. That was amazing.
We joke about it, but I think of our recent conversation that we had with Phoenix and hearing them talk about their multi-layered approach to what they're doing in air support. They've got the fixed wing asset and the high level, helicopter asset mid-level, and the UAS operating low level, and they're all 3 working together. That to me is the ultimate dream, and I realize that's a pipe dream. A lot of agencies cannot afford that, but for the ones that can, not only to have the ability to purchase it and make it possible, but actually train and be effective in those operations is crucial. So again, Ryan, love what you're doing with Tactical Flying. Really inspiring to hear your story. I had no idea that you've been involved in so much, and you've answered the call. That's the one thing that keeps coming to mind as I think through the things you've done in your personal life and your professional life. And those lines have blurred at times, which is really interesting and it's inspiring. To be honest, it's really, really cool. You guys at Tactical Flying are doing so much stuff in parallel with us. Consider you guys partners. I love what you guys are doing.
Absolutely.
Love Nick, and just the desire to make our community better, I think, is what you guys are doing. Nick's not a millionaire as a result of what you guys are doing. But he's making the industry better, and so are you. So commend you for that. Excited to see, as we go, how we can continue to work together for the betterment of our community. Before we walk out, Bryan, any last closing thoughts or things you'd like to touch on?
No, I think I just want to echo again the importance of having this kind of training. Back to what we first talked about, the people that Tactical Flying and the people that you train, Jack, are going to be over the most critical things that happen in our communities at some point. We have to work on that assumption, and for them to do well requires giving them some specific training in order to do that job effectively. And the amount of focus we put on that is going to make the difference in whether or not good people go home to their families at the end of the night. So it's incumbent on everyone to provide that training. And like you said, Jon, the days of on-the-job training are long since gone. That doesn't cut it anymore. So if we're going to be committed to the community and committed to these people and committed to the budgets for all the equipment, we have to train the people to do it right. And just telling them, here's your stuff, go do a good job and don't suck, that's not going to do anything. And someday some kid's parent is not going to come home because we haven't taken the time to train them properly. So it's so important. It seems so basic to all of us. I know you all have seen it as you go around, and the fight people have with some of their agencies to get just basic training on how to use the camera appropriately so you can find that person hiding, get that lost person found in the mangroves and get them home. It's out there, it's available, it needs to be done, and the return on investment is going to be lives saved. It's just a very basic equation. And by doing that, those same skill sets that help them run a mission is also going to help that aircrew deal with an in-flight emergency and fly safer on a daily basis. It's all complementary. It's a simple equation. It has to be done. Figure out how to do it and get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. I go back to the illustration, the incident that Ryan talked about in the beginning of the podcast. If you're going to put a TFO overhead of an incident like that, you better be sure you've provided them the tools to be successful and not just relying upon OJT and prior experience. So yeah, there's so many resources available today to give that training, to provide that training. So really just, I can't be forceful enough, in the sense that as a community, we need to demand that we can get this training. And we've talked about it before. If your agency is not willing to foot the bill, I think it's worth the investment to spend money out of pocket to go and do it yourself, whether it's going to AppsCon or Echo or going to tactical flying and traveling to their facility in beautiful North County, San Diego. Who wouldn't want to go there anyways, but we're professionals and we need to treat it like that. Jack, you talk about, going back to kind of what Bryan said, you never know when you're walking into work that day, what's going to take place.
Yeah.
You don't plan on going over the top of one of your friends who's lying on the ground asking for help.
No, you don't.
Got to be prepared.
But it happens.
Yeah. Can you give us your closing thoughts and if there's anything you want to touch on before we...
On that topic, John, there is a manhunt in Washington State right now in a very rugged area south of Leavenworth in Washington where local, state, and federal agencies are airborne looking for this triple murder suspect who suffocated his 3 daughters. He needs to be found. He needs to be found now. And this has been going on for over a week. And they've spotted him a couple times. It's an ongoing thing. But, those air crews, did they know they were going to be thrown into something that heavy duty? No. Spokane is over there. The people I was just up with in Spokane they're over there with their new 505 and their Huey and their SWAT teams. You get thrown into these things. And if you're not at the top of your game, tactically, mentally, physically, it's going to be difficult. And the training is out there. I love what tactical flying's done over the years. I've known Kevin since my beginnings, and following through to now Ryan and Nick and Harold in Europe and all these people. It's so important what you're doing. And I'll just end with this, Ryan. You're a good human being, dude. And I learned things about you today that I'm glad I got to learn. I'm really glad I got to learn. And you're just a good human. And I wish you the best with your baseball team that you're coaching and with the best in life. Well done, Ryan. Keep up the great work on the baseball field and in teaching, and keep doing what you're doing the way you do it. Well done.
Appreciate that.
You're the representative from our community that I wish people would see, as this is the kind of person who's in law enforcement. Yeah. This is the kind of person that cares about the community that we're a part of, because oftentimes they don't see that. So really cool that we got to talk to you and bring that out a bit.
Absolutely.
Almost forgot to talk about Harold. We can't talk about
Harold Brink.
Talking about Harold.
Harold's amazing
stuff.
Harold's the best, man. He's another good dude, man. And he's got such experience and such outreach in Europe, and he's just one of my favorite people that I've been honored to come across over the years of teaching. I've known him many, many years. I've spent time with him a lot of places.
Absolutely.
And he's just a great human being, and he's become an outstanding instructor, which is
he's incredible.
So cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's passionate. He's like you.
Yeah, and he's abrasive, just like me. It's great.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
I've noticed that.
Oh, yeah.
Just here and there, not all the time.
Our first quick story. Our first interaction with Harold. Well, we knew Harold before, but Phil was teaching a class, and Harold called Nick and just, this guy is not good. He's reading the slide. I mean, he just lit him up, and we're going like, man, Phil's a really good instructor. Like, what's going on? He was so like just on it, and I'm just telling Nick, I'm like, I love this guy already. This is great. We need him to teach for us. He's amazing.
He's ripping Phil up.
We laugh about it all the time.
Oh, that's funny.
But I can't thank you guys enough. I mean, honestly, we pinch ourselves every day. Just kind of Nick and I laugh about it. We're going, man, I can't believe what this has grown into. Our number one goal was to keep up that legacy of Kevin and Todd. And that was our number one goal because we cherish them so much. We cherish the information, the training they gave us, the time they gave us, the love they gave us. And they taught us to be who we are. And we want to be able to share that with everybody else. All of our instructors with Nick, Chris, Derek, Cody, our new one, Tony, on the East Coast. And Harold, I mean, they're all amazing individuals. And that's the cool part about this is being able to surround yourself with great people, and then, obviously our relationship with all three of you that we've had and we built over the years. I still remember, sitting in Jack's class at Qualcomm Stadium when I was in the gang unit and, and then getting to meet him in AppsCon, I was just like, thought he was a god, and sitting in on Bryan's class and then being able to teach, before Bryan taught his class, it was just like, man, this is crazy. I can't believe this is actually happening. Yeah. But it's just, the thing I love about it is like, we want to urge people just not to be just okay at their job. We want them to be great, and don't settle. Don't ever say like, well, at least the guy was caught. No, we want to catch them the right way and the most efficient way and the safest way. We don't want people to be just okay. We want them to be great, and that's our number one goal. And we got to check our egos out the door and get after it. So
it's excellent.
It's a beautiful thing.
Bravo.
And then, hey, on that note, with the can't afford training, just reach out. Just reach out. I'm not a lawyer. I don't charge by email. I don't charge by hour. If you have any questions, just reach out, and I will promise you I will answer you, and I will be there for you. I'm not doing this to get rich. I'm doing this to just enjoy life. And, we want to be able to offer that to anybody who's out there, no matter if you're not in a unit yet or you're in a unit. It's totally free to email. They're free. You have rollover email minutes every single month, and you can use the shit out of them. So, feel free to do that.
Well done.
Yeah. So email, website, tacticalflying.com, social media at tacticalflying,
text message, whatever you need. It's there.
So yeah, you guys are doing great stuff. On the topic of training, I almost forgot to bring up, interesting course is going to be coming up at Echo this year in Louisville, Kentucky. Jack and Clay Lacey will be teaching for the first time ever a combined course titled Tactical Solutions. So it really, in my mind too, the best instructors in the world when it comes to this topic will be sharing, I'll call it a stage. It won't be a stage, but sharing the podium for the betterment of the community. You all know that just because you know something doesn't entitle you to be a good instructor. It takes effort, and Jack and Clay have put a lot of effort into being able to communicate the topics they teach, and that their classes are phenomenal. So I'm really excited to see the two of you teach together. Really dynamic. That's going to be end of September, beginning of October in Louisville, Kentucky. Again, it's the Echo Every Coast Helicopter Operations Public Safety Aviation Conference. Really cool opportunity for training and networking. So hit us up for information on that. It's going to be a really cool opportunity. So look forward to that. But until then, we will catch you later. Have a great night, and thanks.
All right. We'll see you.
Have a good night, guys.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thanks to our sponsor, Garmin. The Garmin GI-275 digital flight instrument is now approved for MD-500 helicopters, giving operators the ideal upgrade option for replacing obsolete mechanical gauges with reliable solid-state electronics. Get details at garmin.com/GI-275 Heli.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicast in a partnership with Vertical Valor Magazine. We sincerely appreciate Ryan Welch for sharing his incredible journey and invaluable insights into law enforcement aviation and the evolving landscape of public safety aviation. We hope you found this conversation both inspiring and informative. Don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on future content, and please leave us a rating and review. It really helps others discover the show. Lastly, be sure to check out the other great podcasts available on the Vertical Helicast platform at verticalhelicast.com. Cheers.